What up, YouTube? It's your friendly neighborhood Timgineer, and today we're talking about Assassin's Creed, so stick around. We're going to break this down into 4 different categories, and then I'm going to go ahead and give you an overall score so that you know exactly what you're getting into when you go to the movies. The first category is character development. We have 3 main characters as well as a bunch of minor characters, and we're going to focus on the main characters just to keep this video nice and short. The first main character that we're going to discuss is the actual assassin. We start off when we actually see him starting to grow, and what we see is him actually starting his training. All we see is him leaping off of a building onto another building with a bike and failing. So true, other me, with your slightly different costume. He is only riding a bike and leaping from one building to another and failing miserably. But we see that he's starting to actually develop the skills. We see the eagle flying overhead, and we see him having to jump from building to building and doing the proper parkour style of moving around. So that's how we know that he started his training. Now, whether it's something that's given to him and something that just doesn't change, that's a different theory altogether. I honestly believe that it is something that you have to train on. It makes me feel better about myself. The next character we actually are introduced to in the same sequence, and that is the father of the love interest. We'll get to the love interest, just hold on. So the father of the love interest arrives in the car, and we only see basically just the back of his head and his hands in his lap. Kind of interesting, but unnecessary for the most part. We are going to be introduced to the father that ends up killing people later on in the movie, but not right away. So what's the point? Why are you showing us this? I guess it's really just to kind of establish that yes, he's been around and has been doing this kinds of stuff for a long time. So the next character that we're going to discuss is the love interest. Quarter of the way into the movie, we finally meet the love interest. And I know what you're saying. What does that have to do with the price of tea in China? It really has nothing to do with it. The thing that we know about her as far as character development goes is that she's been doing this kind of stuff for a long time. And to prove that point, they actually have her having a conversation with the assassin and kind of divulging information about what the assassins are and who they've become. So that actually takes us to our next point, and that is the plot. So one thing that Star Wars did really well in the very beginning was they explained everything about the Force. They did it in such a smooth way that you didn't realize it was going on. Now, in this movie, they did try to add a little bit of comedy. I'm afraid it didn't quite work. Now, that might be because of my bias. I have 2 children, and my children are constantly telling me, "Daddy, I'm hungry. Daddy, I'm hungry. Daddy, I'm hungry." I feed them a lot, but they still say it. So when I heard it in the movie, it was less of a, more of a, But that does lead us to the actual plot, in which she actually divulges information and explains to the T what the assassins are and what the Assassin's Creed is. So you gotta give them points for that. They did go into detail on what they're actually looking for. That's important. We all need to know this. That actually brings me to my next point, and that is, how close is this to the video games? And I'll tell you, it's actually really, really close to the video games. But in this movie, there's no Desmond Miles. You're absolutely right, other me in a slightly different costume. There is no Desmond Miles, but they decided to go a different route. Instead of going with Desmond Miles and only relying on that one person who was going to be their savior after a bunch of failures, instead they're going with, let's create a different character. Let's have some originality to this so that we can bring our own flair to it. And I think it worked. It was definitely a good gamble on their part. Now that actually brings us to our next point, which is the graphics. Now, the graphics by far are my favorite part. In this particular movie, they used a different style of animus. Instead of being reclined or relaxed and just laying there, enjoying the DNA helix something or other time travel thingamabob, instead, we are actually enjoying it from the perspective of someone who's wearing VR glasses and someone who's able to freely move. And I love the fact that, and this ties into plot, that we actually have him starting to develop that link. Instead of just being given the link and all of a sudden being able to control this person, now we have a little bit of control, but not a lot. And then we start to link and we get to grow that link. So it doesn't happen overnight. That's phenomenal. I love that. That's one of my favorite features about this particular feature. I'll let that joke sink in. Anyway, that brings us to our last point, and that is action. So the action. Now, obviously, in a movie called Assassin's Creed, you're going to have action. But is it full-on action, or is it mostly derivative? The reality is we do have the hidden blades. We have sword play. We have some amazing acrobatics and martial arts. But it is slightly derivative. It is still just action. And we want something more with our action. And this is the biggest drawback of this entire movie, the action was hard to follow. Now, I get having fast-moving action. We get that from Jet Li. We get that from way back with Jackie Chan. But the reality is that if we can't follow it, we can't link up with it. We can't synchronize with it. So what we end up with in this particular movie, because of the way that they decided to put the camera right in the middle of the action, instead of pulling it back slightly so that we could see the action and feel like we were a part of the action, we actually felt a little removed from the action. And that's going to cause it points. So let's go ahead and go over the points, shall we? So the different categories were character development, plot, graphics, and the action. So starting off with character development, I give it 4 T's. That's right, 4. Because we had awesome character development. It was amazing. I actually felt like I knew who these characters were, even though I don't remember their names. Hey, that's like real life. Haha. The second point was the plot. Now, the plot was amazing. They decided to give us enough details to be able to go on, but not enough to where we're like, I feel like I'm overloaded with information and I didn't get enough story. They also gave us a great storyline with plenty of features. So I'm giving that one also 4 T's. When it comes to graphics, I felt like that was nailed on its head. And so I'm giving it 5, that's right, 5 T's, the very rare 5T. As far as the action goes, though, I have to give it only 2 T's. It was very derivative, but mostly it was just hard to follow. Being right in the middle of the action does not mean putting the camera in the middle of the action. Pull it back. Let me see what's going on so that I can feel a bit better about the action, so I can feel a little bit connected to that action, instead of being so lost as to what's going on because I can't see anything going on. The overall rating of this movie? I'm giving it 4 T's. It is a phenomenal movie, and I recommend going and seeing it. So, in closing, I just wanted to say thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing. If you liked this video, please hit the like button. If you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe. We've got plenty of content, and we're always building. The Timgineering community can always get bigger. Share this video with all your friends, and of course, we'll see you next time. I'm gonna go ahead and put the subscribe button right here, and we've got the most recent video uploaded right here. So, of course, click on either one of those two. I recommend clicking on both in this order. That one, then that one.